Hi, my name is Brenda Fulmer. I'm a partner with the law firm of Searcy, Denney. Here today to talk to you about Medtronic's Fidelis Leads. This is litigation that the firm has been involved in quite some time. We've suffered some recent setbacks, but we're hoping with some efforts that are ongoing in Congress right now to solve those problems. Medtronic is one of the best-known manufacturers of medical devices, primarily heart devices. They make pacemakers, defibrillators, and in this case they make leads. These are electric wires that attach to a defibrillator, and these particular leads are threaded through the heart chamber, and that's why a very significant issue with respect to this litigation. The Medtronic's Fidelis Leads were recalled on October 15th, 2007, and the reason why they were recalled is that they were breaking or fracturing in unprecedented numbers. We don't really know exactly what is happening, although the suspicion is that it may be due to the fact that this lead was 30% thinner than any other leads that were placed on the market. This was kind of a marketing niche for Medtronic. Doctors like to use this particular lead because it was thinner, it was easier for them to manipulate in the chest cavity and insert in patients. We don't believe that there was any benefit whatsoever to the patients. This particular device was modeled on an older version of a Medtronic lead that really didn't have any problems, so apparently, as best we can tell, 30% thinner is way too thin. What is happening with patients, and it's just really unfortunate, I mean, these patients have the devices put in place to save their lives. They have heart rhythm disturbances that are life-threatening, ventricular arrhythmias, and so they have these devices placed usually after they've had a heart attack or heart failure, so that if their heart should go into an abnormal rhythm, the device can basically shock them back. This device is placed internally, but it's not unlike the paddles that you often see on TV that an EMS or hospital personnel would use to shock a patient. The lead is threaded through the heart chamber, and what happens when the lead starts to fail, it senses that there's an abnormal heart rhythm even though there's not one there. So the device starts to shock the patient because it thinks there's an arrhythmia. Well, after it shocks the patient the first couple times and there's no change in the heart rhythm, the device believes that perhaps it needs to shock the patient a little bit harder. To make certain that they can restore what they are sensing as an abnormal rhythm. Ultimately, what happens is these patients have repeated shocks to their system. I've had clients that have described to me that they tried to rip the device out of their chest. I also had a client who explained to me that every time he was shocked, he'd call another family member to say goodbye. And so this has just been absolutely catastrophic injuries to the patients, and just that they're so fearful that some of them have chosen not to put these devices back in place because they would rather die from their arrhythmia than go through what they've gone through when their Medtronic lead fractured. When a lead fractures, they have to go in for immediate surgery. And unfortunately, because it's threaded through the heart chamber, they can't necessarily pull it out. For most of these patients, they actually go in and cap off the lead, but leave it in the heart. And so these patients, that causes them even more harm to know that they still have this defective device in their heart and that it will remain there for the rest of their lives. So that's kind of the heart of the litigation. Also, we are concerned, and part of the litigation is focused on whether there's a manufacturing defect. There have been some concerns that perhaps the leads themselves were not even manufactured to the manufacturer's own specifications. Unfortunately, in the litigation so far, we have not been allowed to obtain any of the documents that we might need to be able to prove that particular claim. I mentioned earlier that there's been some setbacks. All of the cases in the country that were filed against Medtronic were all transferred to a single court in Minnesota. That judge in early January of 2009 entered an opinion that said basically that none of those plaintiffs were allowed to recover anything for their injuries. And the basis of that opinion is something called federal preemption. Federal preemption is completely created by the executive branch, and it's something that's been implemented through our court system. Congress has never passed a law that said that these people don't have the right to recover for their injuries. Something that's very shocking to a lot of our clients. When they actually understand what preemption means, they're just absolutely appalled that that could be the law in this country and that they would be locked out of the courthouse. But nevertheless, that's what has happened with respect to the Medtronic lead litigation. Hopefully Congress will step up and fix that. But in this particular situation, the judge has ruled that there is no claim for any plaintiff, even though the product is defective and even though the plaintiffs have died or have suffered catastrophic injuries, they're not allowed to sue. They're not allowed to sue for a manufacturing defect. They're not allowed to sue even though there's evidence that Medtronic knew about this problem for a very long period of time before they bothered to tell their sales reps, before they bothered to tell physicians, before they bothered to tell patients. And also they can't be sued even if this is a manufacturing defect, which is particularly troublesome because even though the FDA does the best it can with the limited resources that it does, the FDA does not stand at the end of a manufacturing line and inspect things as they're coming off the line. It's absolutely an unprecedented extension of federal preemption in a way that we have not seen it previously. So hopefully through Congress and through a lot of efforts that are going right now with various consumer groups, even the doctors and the lawyers are on the same side on this issue and absolutely appalled at what's happening. Perhaps we'll be able to stop this through congressional action, and the Medtronic litigation will be back on its feet again. Even though we've suffered a setback in the coordinated Medtronic litigation in early January of 2009, we're hopeful that Congress will step in the early weeks and months of the Obama administration to fix this particular issue. If we're able to do it on an expedited basis, we will be able to have the legislative remedy in place that would allow Medtronic victims to continue to sue and pursue their claims and basically restart the litigation in Minnesota. And we certainly, in many jurisdictions, the statute of limitation period are long enough that we should have the ability to do so. In addition, obviously, the adverse opinion will be appealed, and perhaps we'll have a remedy there as well. So all hope is not lost for those that have been victimized by the Medtronic leads.